Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. What's going on with your sound?
Perfect. Nothing other than the fact that I hadn't changed the settings to receive input from the microphone on my headset, which was the key. So,
what were some of the other names in the waiting room?
I'll start adding them in now. So there's 7 waiting. Okay, admit all.
Okay.
Hi. Hi. Oh, Ken Beresford.
Yeah, Ken Beresford's here.
Hi, Ken. How are you doing?
Fit as a fiddle.
Fit as a fiddle. Yeah. Okay. So you're lying. Okay. And let's see. Karina.
Yeah.
Karina, I can't see your face yet, Karina. What's happening?
There we go. We got a voice.
I'm writing a lot of stuff down here. Hi, Ann.
Hi.
Hi. Charmaine, I see your name on my screen, but I can't see your face.
All right.
So you folks know that if you tap your screen, you'll see a window that'll open up, and you unmute your mic when you're ready to talk.
And tell them you can't stay very long. That's what you do.
Okay, I have to go now. We'll see you next time.
Okay. Yeah, she's off to another meeting.
Okay.
That was
Nice
Marina
going.
Wilson. Yeah.
So I'm actually at work. So if I disappear, you'll know that I've just I have to deal with something.
Okay. What is it you do?
Well, I'm a school bus driver, but they've put us in the front entrance of schools right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I see the name Karen J. Bradley.
Correct.
I haven't looked at my roster in a while. I didn't know. I didn't realize you were a member.
I'm a fairly new member. I think I joined in December.
Okay. And what guiding have you done in the past?
I haven't. I'm just in the ITMI course right now.
Oh, okay. Fantastic. Fantastic. All right. Well, I'm Jeff, and Matthew's there somewhere.
Hello.
Yeah. Oh, hi. Marlene is on board. Yay.
Hello.
Marlene.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. You sound
Wonderful.
great.
Great.
I'm writing down names as we go here.
Okay.
Yeah. Fantastic. And let's see, what am I going to do here? I'm trying to participants here. Oh, Anna. Which one's Anna? Or A-N-J-A. How do you say that?
Anya?
G. Jackie. Where's Jackie W?
I'm right here.
Oh,
Hi.
there you are.
That's Jackie.
Hi.
Okay. It's great to see you all.
Yeah. Thank you for organizing.
Yeah, and I just sent an email out over the last day or two for some potential guest speakers, people that either have spoken to us previously or will again via perhaps Zoom. We'll see how it goes. Ursula, I see your name on the screen. Is that right? Unmute your mic, Ursula, if you're there.
They may be busy, so anyway, hi everyone. I'm Matthew, for everyone that hasn't actually met me, but just to kind of see me hanging around. I'm kind of running the tech background on this one today, so if you have any questions, feel free to ask. We're going to run a little survey out afterwards too for helping, you guys figure out what worked and didn't work, and we'll get you guys, more accustomed to things with how Zoom works in the next little bit too. So bit of a learning curve getting this many people on Zoom for CTGA, so bear with us.
Is George Bell on board yet?
Yeah.
Everybody that's in the waiting room is inside the chat right now, so there's nobody else at the moment waiting.
So that's only about 12 people or so?
Yeah, looks like it. 11. I've got, oh, and you'll see I've got a backup running. That's why there's 2 boxes with me on there. One with my video, one without. You don't need to see me twice as often.
Very good. Okay. So is anyone not used to using Zoom? Is this your first time?
No.
Oh,
First time
good.
participating.
First time participating.
I've watched
So-
but not spoken. Yeah.
All right. So Jackie, you know, if you tap your screen,
Yeah.
it'll open up a window that says, you know, mute, stop video, share content,
Yeah.
participants, and so on.
Yeah.
Where is the, oh yeah, if you hit the more button, you'll see something that says chat,
Mm.
and you can type messages. I'm going to type one now. Okay. Members, let's see here. Okay, let's see here. Yeah. So yeah, if you hit your screen somewhere, and you look for that button with 3 dots and it says more, tap on that, and then hit the chat button, and you'll see there's a message there. And if you want to type back, you can. You don't have to, but if you want to. All right, I show it's 11:01. So is that dinging, Matthew, mean that someone else is trying to join in?
I mean, somebody somewhere got a text message on one of the dozen chats that are here. So,
okay, well, welcome everybody. We'll start with the obvious question: how's everybody doing? Anyone want to comment? You're doing okay? What have you been doing to pass the time?
Cleaning house.
everyone's houses, I'm sure, are spotless by this point after a month already, right?
Working in the garden.
Working in the garden. Okay. I see George and Heather Bell there.
You got it.
I can see them on the screen. And how's your health, George?
Oh, super.
Excellent. Excellent. I'm just writing down some notes as I go here to make sure I got everything. Okay. George, I'm going to start with you if I can. Just because, for those who don't know George Bell, George is sitting on your screen there somewhere with his wife, Heather. She's got a purple sweater on, it looks like. They've been touring a few years longer than I have, running. George and Heather have both been local guides and long-distance guides, and used to run a travel agency out of their home or area in White Rock. In any event, George, just your general thoughts. Obviously, this is unprecedented times, but from what you've heard on the news in recent days, your thoughts on what the season for 2020 looks like at this point. Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, are you ready? Okay, I'm actually quite concerned about the summer. I really wonder just how much business there's going to be for guides and for the hospitality industry. Time will tell.
My feeling is that we'll be lucky to get any work of any kind. And I'm also, George, I also wanted your thoughts on who you think will survive, who's possibly going to go under in the tourism business as far as bus companies or tour companies. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah. Not really. It all depends on the financial ability of the various companies. I don't know. I'm as I said, I'm very concerned about it. I'm glad I'm retired now.
Were you planning any tours this summer yourself, you or Heather, to do any step on or anything?
No, we're just doing personal stuff now. I mean, for the number of years we were in the business during the summertime, we never got to see our own province. So that's what we've been doing. We bought a motor home and we've been traveling around.
Funny how that works, right?
Yeah.
Show everybody else around, but never get to spend the time yourself doing it.
You got it.
Will you try to go anywhere with these restrictions we have now?
Going to be totally as to when everything opens up. Like the parks are all closed, you know, and the campgrounds are closed. So
The gas price is right, though.
Yeah, you can afford gas now, but you can't go anywhere.
you got it. You got it.
Most, the prices of the gas and that are low. Most things are closed, and most local towns are not actually that accommodating to anybody coming from outside of town, especially from anyone from the city right now. Everyone's actively wanting to turn away, and there are, Squamish has petitions up to try and have Sea to Sky closed to all but to all but residents in order to, contain exposure and such. So even personal trips right now are really limited in scope, both on a kind of a PR sense and just on a logistical sense as well. So
Yep.
Does anyone, especially I know Karina's there and Marlene, you guys all do long distance tours. Is one of the answers potentially, if there's anything for this summer, but certainly for 2021, is people wearing masks on the tour bus? Is that one way that people might be interested in getting on the bus, or do we need to wait for a vaccine to come out that's been proven that it's not going to have any side effects, and that's the only way we're going to get back to normal, somewhat normal?
But that'll mean waiting a year.
Yeah.
At least.
Yeah. Any thoughts on that, Marlene or Karina?
Yeah, I think it will take a long time for people to have the confidence to go back out there again. I don't think just a mask will help. I think people, they just won't go till they really feel safe. So I don't think till we have a vaccine, there will be much coming.
Any thoughts on that, Marlene, yourself?
In the same situation, I think that's the way I feel as well. I think it'll take a vaccine and for people to feel confident that they're not going to catch anything.
Yeah,
there's another aspect as well to all of this, and it's got nothing to do with the actual vaccination or health of people on board a bus. It's just that the longer this goes on, the more into people's savings they're going to be dipping into, and the less discretionary income they're going to have to be able to afford any trips for a year or 2 years already. I mean, I would imagine most of them have tapped into reserves that they've got for this year only, let alone next year, and it all is going to depend on how long it goes on for. So
yeah, has you don't have to say what, but has anyone contemplated what they might have to do for this summer and even next summer, a different job?
I'm going to be myself going and guarantee you the emergency response benefit is going to be extended. There's just, it's, at least for certain industries, tourism, it's going to be, I'd imagine that this is going to be a year-long program.
Yeah, I'm just watching the headlines on the TV screen in the distance here, and the Canadian Airlines, or at least one of them, it doesn't say which one, has indicated on May 22nd they're looking at going back up in the air with flights unless there's border issues.
No, it's probably AC, Jeff, because it's like they announced that as of April 26th, they were shutting down all their flights to the U.S. They still had 26 flights going in. So,
yeah, it's
all
completely
right.
shut down till the 22nd of May at the earliest.
Yeah, I heard Gary's voice, but I don't see you, Gary.
that's all right.
It's dark.
Go ahead.
Matthew,
Yeah, it's like I'm sitting out on the deck, so I'm kind of like in shadow. I imagine I'm sort of like this black thing in the shadows.
I don't even, I see some other name. Matthew, I see 9 people on my screen at the moment, but how do I find more of them?
If you scroll across your iPad, you'll be able to see a bunch of other people on your next page.
Oh, there they are. I see
there they are.
Charlene. Charmaine, Marta, and Fatima, aye. Let me put Fatima here and Charmaine. Yeah. Okay. Jackie, Matthew. Okay, very good. Ursula, I see you there too. Okay. All right. Next question. Let's see here. Okay, let's talk about something that worked well with one of the other study groups I'm on, which was with ITMI. They asked this question, sort of a puzzler, a brain puzzler for a future tour that you might be doing as a step-on guide. You're just a few minutes into the tour, and all of a sudden you realize that there's some kind of traffic jam. Maybe a police officer walks up to your bus and says, you can't go any further. The tour route you're planning to go on is all stopped up. What do? The tour leader has whispered in your ear, you've got to show us something for the next couple of hours. What do you do?
Head for the hills, North Vancouver. Lots of things to see there.
Yeah, yeah. Anyone else? Other suggestions?
Well, depending where you are in the itinerary. Depending on where you're gonna be in your itinerary. So you need to plan ahead for this situation, I think. Depend on your itinerary.
Right.
Be prepared. Think about first.
Okay.
UBC and Steveston and go out into the valley a bit, whatever. We've had that situation in the past, so you've had to think standing up and readjust and go on and call it a mystery tour.
Exactly.
Hey, worst comes to worst, you always have Iona Beach out by the airport.
Yeah.
Those who don't know, that's where the Metro Vancouver sewage treatment plant is. You might get the odd smell, but it's a beautiful place to go.
If you don't want to let them off and you not take the risk, you can have a wonderful photo opportunity. And I've been out there lots, but I have to admit, only once or twice have you caught a smell of anything. So.
Yeah, I haven't been out there in a while. The suggestion that I made when this came up a few weeks ago was that you could look at, normally on a city tour, you don't have time to go into the aquarium or maybe the Museum of Vancouver, but you could look at that possibility, see if you can quickly phone them and get a group rate, or just show up at the door, go in, talk to the staff, explain the situation, see what kind of a deal they'll give you. Sometimes they will. Going to Queen Elizabeth Park, if that wasn't originally part of your itinerary, and like George said, George and Heather said, Stevenson Village. I took Trish out there recently. It's even just to walk along the river there, between the Britannia Heritage shipyards. Even if you don't walk quite that far, the little town itself is quite interesting. The walkway along Ambleside Beach is good as well. I just got a text from Charmaine. She can't hear us. So, Matthew, I think what she needs to do is
she can just
Charmaine,
call in on her phone with the phone number that's on there and the link
or
that was
tap
given.
on Charlene. Try tapping in on your screen. Tap your screen and see if there's a button you can hit.
Should be on the lower left.
Yeah, I've been talking to different people on Zoom about where things show up on their screen when you tap on it, and so I get mine on the top.
It's going to be different depending on your device. We've got most people on Apple products, but it will differ between iPhones, Android phones, iPads. I have a backup running on my phone, but I am primarily using my computer, in which case I can see everybody. So it can be a bit of a crapshoot trying to figure out which location on which device.
All right, I'm just telling Charmaine to try booking back in, and I'm going to tell her to hit the internet audio button, which is something people miss as well.
So while Jeff's doing that, quick question, because I obviously have less experience with CTGA and its general operations than most people here, having only joined a year ago. Jeff made an interesting point there. What, if any, has there ever been like a concerted effort on the CTGA to have some sort of what's a good way to put it? A system set up, like where you're saying, like, hey, if last minute you need to call and see if you can arrange a group rate or something like that. Has the CTGA ever talked to CAP, to the aquarium, to the various ones to set up, an account, basically, so that if people, here's Lorraine, I'm just inventing a couple more in, something like that. I'm not sure how that would work logistically, but there's obviously a louder voice if the CTGA speaks as a group with its 170 members or so, as compared to just a random tour guide calling in, and saying, is that something anyone's ever thought of, or is it something that's been tried? I'm just not sure. So.
As far as I know, you need to set up an account with them individually as a tour guide and have your file with the company in order to bring groups in.
Yeah, that's been my experience. But my experience when I've called sort of last minute is that they don't really care who you are. It's just how many people do you have? When are you coming? Okay, come on in. We can arrange to let you in for this amount of money. So, of course, then you talk to the tour leader, or if you're traveling with a group that has a tour leader traveling with it, it's probably better to ask that question beforehand so that you can, listen, they're going to want to charge 10 or 20 or $30 a person or whatever. You know that going in, and then you can sort of say yes right on the spot.
So my particular question leans into another aspect that's coming up. That's no one heard it from me, but the requirement for pre-registering at attractions is going to be more prevalent. Things like Capilano, with everyone has seen the lines that they've had there. Like, they are requesting people to do kind of like what Pursuit does with Snow Coach, and that is you're scheduling a time in advance. If you don't schedule, then you get lower priority for that. That's something that's coming now that may end up being pushed off depending on how many more or less people are going to be coming over the next couple of years with the current situation. But that was in the works at CAP for sure. So.
Any other comment?
Makes it more difficult.
Look out, Capilano, you need to have reservations with them. And if you are paying with your credit card, collecting them and paying you with your credit card, you need to have a file approved with them. Otherwise, you pay cash for sure. But they want to know ahead of time that you are going there.
And they're not giving out the vouchers for drivers and guides and such or they weren't going to be anyway. They were going to be reducing that system for non-pre-registered groups and guides as well. So.
Okay, I see.
Why bother?
Why bother?
With which part in particular?
Yeah. And I know from talking in the past to Whistler Blackcomb that they're very fussy there, but generally all the staff I've spoken to anywhere has been helpful. They're trying to get you into the attraction. I think although Fatima just said, you usually have to tell them in advance or something like that. I think those days for the next this summer anyway, or if you get it, you call them up and they're open and they're be willing to, they'll be open arms to see you. But next summer, if during this coming winter things look like it's going back to normal, then I don't know. I can say one thing for sure, Matthew, you probably agree with me. There probably won't be any parking fees at Granville Island this year anyway. They'll be so happy to have a bus show up on the damn island Not only can you park right here, you can park anywhere, pal.
So, some of you might have seen that I had posted up on the not the CTGA Facebook group, but the BC Alberta Guides group, that I was down at Granville Island a week and a half ago or so, and talking to some of the vendors. I mean, still a grocery store, so there's still, you know, vendors open. There's no day vendors. All of those stalls are gone, whether or not that's by vendor's choice or by market directive, which I imagine is probably it to ensure spacing. But most of whom I spoke with, their particular feedback was that, you know, it's just their core locals that are coming there and nobody else. So obviously no tourists. And even then, many of the locals that were coming from further abroad are not. Maybe some of the ones that were traveling in from Langley or something like that for an afternoon. It was quite dead but busy in a certain select few vendors. So I don't know what Granville Island's going to do. They may keep the fees because they are not pulling in the rental income that they would get from their operations normally, because they get a percentage. Not all of them, but most of the vendors pay a percentage of their sales to the island administration. So
I think that because this is unprecedented, nobody's ever lived through this in the past, and the future isn't going to be what we're used to from the past. I think that the numbers of people, if they do go by bus in the future, will be a lot smaller in number, and you know, the cost will be a lot bigger because you won't be able to have as many people on the tours. And, you know, the social or the physical distancing is going to last for a long time. So I think it's just it's a rolling stone, and we just have to sort of invent ourselves every time the situation changes. So yeah, it's just going to be a very interesting time. I hope somebody's writing a book about this and the steps that they're going through.
It must be a small library of books after this.
I'm sure the statisticians are having a great time now for all kinds of things, starting to document changes in society that they've never been able to do before, at least on a scale they've never been able to do before. But I definitely think a lot of people, even if they had a vaccine tomorrow, are already uncomfortable enough being close to people that their habits have changed enough that they're not going to want to be close to people for a while until it's been demonstrated to be, you know, safe and you know, not contagious anymore.
I have an interesting question about what I guess for any of you, what things will not be normal again? For example, we'll probably never see again, such as handshaking. I think that's gone. Anything else that comes to mind?
I think people will get back to handshaking.
Passing pens around.
What's that, Lorraine? Lorraine, what did you say?
Passing pens around.
Oh, passing pens around.
Even just any kind of doodads on that.
You know, the white glove that the ladies wore in the early days, and the men had, you know, their gloves as well. People will stop wearing gloves on a regular basis now.
And, yeah, Gary, I see you occasionally there. I can see your silhouette. All right. I have another question for especially the longtime tour directors. What would you do if you're showing up at your hotel, you're all set to run in the door and get the keys and bring them out, and you show up at the desk and the desk clerks look at you and go, "We don't have you here. We don't have you at all.
You didn't do your homework and pre-check your..."
Exactly. Exactly.
Call them, confirm numbers and rooms and everything.
That's a mistake everyone makes once.
Before you get there.
Exactly. That's only one mistake you make once. Very good, Matthew.
Yeah.
Well, I have had it happen, but it wasn't my fault. the hotel went bankrupt
Yeah, okay.
in Italy, and they had the police, the finance there telling us we couldn't stay there.
So, oh, did they go bankrupt just before you arrived?
Yeah.
Did they
Well,
That's
I
a new
don't
one.
know if we went bankrupt just then, but I actually had the police, the finance standing at the entrance as we pulled up and tell us we're not staying there.
So what did happen?
Well, you hopefully have some other hotels your company works with and you call really quick. It was very interesting.
Yeah, that's definitely not going to be possible in Banff on a July or August day. But
Yeah, you're gonna be heading to Canmore or somewhere. Yeah, it's,
Calgary.
yeah, Calgary actually.
It's always
Let's hope everyone's logbooks are good.
It's as long as it's still paper, Matthew. It's all good. You can make it work.
That's what they say, right?
Can always make it work on paper.
All right. On a couple of points on the question I asked, of course, when you're at home, before you leave on the tour, it doesn't hurt to start sending emails or phone calls. Hey, I'm a tour guide. I'm coming to your place on June 1st. I have it down that we're staying with you. Is that what you show? In the immediate situation, I would quietly wave the driver into the lobby and say, hey, what does your paperwork show? It showed that we were at this hotel on this night at this place, right? Make sure it's the same thing. In fact, when I worked as a driver, I always, whenever I could at the first coffee break or somewhere, lunchtime said, hey, so I show that we're going here, 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 and here. Is that right? At this hotel, that hotel? And many, many times that paid off because I would get a no. No, on the fourth night, we're not staying at the Sunwapta Falls Lodge. We're actually staying at the Jasper Park Lodge. Okay, well, are you sure about that? Because that's not what my office sent me. And anytime you call a hotel, and of course you should always be phoning a few days in advance or longer, make note of the time and date you called and who you spoke with.
Yeah, I prefer sending emails because then is in writing. And another thing that I do most of the time, the first day when I see my group, if I notice someone limping or with difficult for mobility issues, I make note about that name on the email. I send all the hotels. I say, such a person, this need a room on the first floor, no stairs, close to the elevator as possible, please. So that I always do.
Yeah, that brought up another interesting question about having someone on the tour that you were, your company, your paperwork, nothing showed you that you have a person in a wheelchair or has mobility issues, and you find that out on the first day as you meet the group. It's usually a great idea to take them aside and say to them, do you have any special needs in the hotel? Obviously, you're going to need to be on a floor where the elevator's working, but what about the bed? Do you need to be in a single bed, a double bed? That's the other thing with some couples as well, making sure you have it clear as to anything they like about the room, and making sure you've called the hotel ahead to make sure they're aware of that. Any other tips anyone can think of that are along those lines?
I can mention something. It's Jackie. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So I had last summer where I had a lady, we stopped in Manning Park, and she fell in the washroom and then required a walker for the rest of the tour. We were heading to Penticton. We were doing a wine tasting tour. I called ahead to a local drugstore and rented one. And by the time we got there, it was ready. I went and picked it up. She had the walker for the entire tour, and then we handed it back to them, and she paid the rental fee on it. So you have to be thinking on your feet. And this lady, I spoke with her, and she said, "Oh no, I'll be okay. I'll be okay." And I arranged the walker without even telling her. I just did it because I could see where this was going to go. And she was so grateful when she got there. And my manager, the company that I work for, was so impressed. She's like, how did you manage to find a walker in a small little town like that? And I said, I just called around. I called ahead. So,
Perfect.
you know, you have to be able to think on your feet and get support where you need it. And luckily, in this day and age with the internet, it's all at your fingertips. You can get this stuff like literally in seconds. You can make this stuff happen.
Yeah, I was on a Victoria tour about 5 years ago, and they came to me just as we were approaching downtown and said their camera had busted. They only needed a thing. They knew it was easy to do. And I thought, gee, you know, in Victoria, I don't know what the odds are going to be to find a camera store, especially in the era of not many people having a real camera anymore. But somebody on the bus quickly Googled whatever they Googled, and they gave me the address. I recognized the address as being just near the Bay Center, you know, we dropped everyone off. They ran up the street, and they came back later after their free time was over and said, yeah, the camera store was there. They got the issue fixed.
Yeah. That's one thing about
just
being a guide. You got to be resourceful.
Yeah.
Just quickly, Jackie, how did you get it back? You said you were at Manning Park.
She used it until the last day of the tour, and which we were staying in Penticton doing wine tasting in that area, in the Naramata Bench. And at the end of the last day we were there, we returned it. And then we were just driving back to Vancouver that day. So she was fine in the bus.
No, that was easier
than
logistically.
Yeah, but you know what? I've done a Europe tour where I had to rent wheelchairs and walkers on a 16-day Europe tour with a bunch of seniors, and I had to rent walkers and wheelchairs there, and I did the same thing. We had to pay a fee to have it dropped off somewhere else, but I was able to do it, and that was all going through Europe, all in Belgium, Germany, and France.
The guests paid the fee to you prior, or how did that?
Well, I paid for it initially, and then it got reimbursed later. Yeah.
But
I've done it in Europe and I've done it in Canada both.
Last summer, I had a family with the grandparents on. I had them at the beginning of their trip here. I had them a few years before as well, and so I had them for a couple of days in Vancouver. They went on their cruise. They came back 11 days later, and they came back out with the grandfather in a wheelchair because he had tripped on board the boat and twisted everything. So they neglected to inform me that morning that they had that issue. So we went up. The Pharmasave at Burrard and Davie is always great to be able to quickly get something rented in downtown if you need to. So perhaps 3 days, and then we were good to go. But if you're in downtown, you need something quick. That's been my go-to. It's like $75 for the month or something like that. It's not expensive at all, and it's really useful.
Another thing is if that had happened to me while I was parked across the street from a high-end hotel like the Empress, the concierges in those big hotels, they're just amazing. And, you could quickly step in and say to them, hi, blah, 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 any quick recommendations you could give me. And they're usually pretty resourceful.
Yeah.
Here's something to think about for the future, though. To kind of change the subject, road closures. The road closures in the temporary road closures in Vancouver. We're looking at, it's like watching the news. It's like what is it? Milano in Italy. Milan is revamping the entire Corsa Buenos Aires. And it's going from like 4 or 5 lanes down to just 2 traffic lanes. And we can see this, is this going to happen in North America? Like the little section near me with Beach Avenue, all the way from Stanley Park, all the way through to Granville Street is now shut down, eastbound. So you've only got 1 lane. Other cities are looking at the same thing, at least as in a temporary vein. This is going to change city tours all over the place if this remains the norm.
Do you really though expect there to be like a bunch of city tours before regular traffic is instituted?
No, I'm just saying if this remains, if the cities decide, like I can see Vancouver saying, hey, this is working. let's just shut down half of Beach Avenue, just put everybody on to Pacific. They don't need it. We can shut it down, possibly, you know. You can still get in and out of Stanley Park in an automobile.
Currently not, but yeah, on a regular
No,
basis.
I mean, it's like you can, I'm using Stanley Park. It's like, it's beautiful. It's like 10 kilometers to do a loop. I can do that on my bicycle. It's like a couple of loops in under an hour. It's like, and there's nobody there. All you've got is cycles. It's gorgeous. I love it.
Yeah, I'm sure it is, and it's great for the locals, but I wouldn't expect there to be any amount of tours coming in.
No, I'm saying it's going to, I'm saying it's like going, they'll open up Stanley Park again, but I'm saying areas like Beach Avenue.
Yeah, Matthew and I, over the last year or so, Matthew, we've also become part of the group of tour bus people that show up at, we've been invited by Vancouver City Hall Engineering Department in Broadway and Cambie, and they're well aware of tour bus issues now more than they've ever been, because they've been holding these meetings, and some of the top managers for other companies such as ISL and so on are at these meetings too, and some tour operators. City Hall knows how important it is for the tour buses to be able to follow the route that they normally follow within the city boundaries, and where we like to stop, totem poles, Prospect Point, being able to have access to get on and off Granville Island, Queen Elizabeth Park, etc., Chinatown, Gastown. So, you know, we have contacts that we can direct emails to if something were to come up. The news people, the city of Vancouver's even done that the roadahead.ca or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Anyway, usually on City Hall website, there's a good amount of, here are the road closures that are coming up for this summer, or, you know, or for the next few weeks to be aware of. So.
No, I'm just saying, what I'm saying, Jeff, is the cities are looking at, you know, the success of these issues and saying, well, let's continue this. Let's make this a permanent fixture, especially down here in the West End with Beach Avenue. And the number of cycles that run up and down is like, if you're on the standard seawall lane at rush hour, it's crazy down there between the people and the cycles. So that's what I'm saying is like.
To put that into a bit of perspective, one, how many coaches are going down there? Is anybody else taking coaches along that section of Beach Ave?
You mean
the lower section by the?
No, I'm not saying the lower thing. It's shut down all the way. Like if they shut it down between, say, Denman, and then just run it straight through.
Yeah, but they've only shut it down eastbound. So.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's still just eastbound.
It would have to be, you know, adjustments in terms of loops westbound, things like that. I would imagine something like the lower section by the aquatic center would be something that they would consider, you know, shutting down or keeping shut down for an indefinite period of time. But the upper section towards the statues and Denman Street, I'd imagine that will have to.
You know, you've got 4 lanes there.
Yeah,
you've
but
got 4 lanes there.
It's just there's too much traffic connecting,
shutting it all down. Yeah.
Just to change the subject, Canada Place, when the cruise ships start coming back, it's never going to be the same the way it has been in the past with wall-to-wall people. So you can just imagine what Canada Place would be like.
We've spoken to the city about those days that are crazy down there, and I tried to encourage them to ban the parking within 2 or 3 blocks of each direction, every street, to make it easier to move down there, and to post signage up block or 2 blocks away, telling motorists, XYZ date is a really busy date. Don't come down here. Unless you don't try to just pass through, this kind of thing. I mean, information boards, those new electronic reader boards that you see on Highway 1, and you see them in the States and like Seattle. The city of Vancouver needs those as well, posted at certain intersections, because the average motorist isn't aware that certain things are happening, like the Sun Run, which would have been the other day, and so on. And if you post signs away from downtown or very close to downtown, the closer they get, they'll see those and they'll drive away, they'll turn and move, not go there. And that's what we need more. We need more information that is posted right away. And they said, okay, that's something they'll have to consider for future budgets. So that's all we can do is point things out to them.
Kind of adding on to that, does anybody really expect any more news about a new cruise terminal now for the next couple of years, or is it going to be on hold now?
George, what do you think? George or Bill Johnson, what do you think?
Yeah, go for it, Bill.
I'm not, Bill, are you there? Yeah, I would think that a cruise ship terminal, the talk now is going to die down, because it's going to take a while now for the cruise ships to be able to build back up clientele and to tell people, hey, it's going to be safe to come on these ships, because most of you all know there was an issue with many of the ships beforehand with viral outbreaks, and now it's even worse.
Well, the Grand Princess was, supposed to be the first ship back in, and it was the main one that was shut off and kept offshore of San Francisco on its northbound repositioning cruise because of those ones. So, there's going to be issues with public perception about going on a cruise ship anyway, even if there was a vaccine and such. They've had pretty bad PR with outbreaks on board prior to COVID-19. Now it's even worse.
We watched a video on the future of cruising and what it will possibly be like, and they'll do a soft easement, i.e. they'll only have about a half of their capacity on the ships, or maybe not even that much to begin with. So I think what will take place with cruises is once they get the okay to go again, that will be a very safe place to travel because of the way they do keep things clean. It'll be smaller numbers on the ships, so there'll be a lot more physical distancing that you can do on the cruise. And they're going to be offering prices that you've probably never ever seen before, and so enticing that the people will start picking up on doing cruises again, just because it's simply going to be so inexpensive to cruise for a while until people start to feel more comfortable cruising. They realize that the psyche of the public are afraid to cruise, and they're doing everything right now to prepare them to make the public feel safe in cruising again. So we're thinking that there'll be a real good price on a round the world cruise when
you're saving your money.
Yeah, we're starting to save them. We're not going out, so.
George, on that topic, George, something Heather said that I was thinking a few days ago is one aspect of the tour bus industry. So a 50-seater bus, or 52 seats or 55 seats, is one aspect for the tour companies to only sell 25 or 30 seats and make that a max, and then people can spread out around the bus that way.
Well, there are many companies that do that already. When we were going internationally on tours, we always had small groups, and so we had a larger bus, and so there was always lots of room. You just have to be aware that you're going to have to charge more for that.
Or make the tour a bit shorter so that they don't need as many people to make a profit, right?
Well, if I'm going internationally, I don't want a short tour. I'm taking a group to Australia, I want it to be at least a month.
So that brings up a good point. Which segment of the market is everyone thinking is going to be coming back first? The lower end or the higher end? Big spenders or the budget conscious?
Anybody with money.
Yeah, they'll be so anxious to get out of their home environment for a little while.
Oh, yeah.
And the prices are going to be so attractive to a lot of people, and the product will be there for, anybody. People that only have a week's holiday or 2 weeks holidays, up to people have all the time in the world. So
Or the world.
There'll be a huge pent-up demand for people wanting to get out. It'll just be insane for a while.
Now, here's the question. Is that going to be people internationally or domestic? People are going to want to get out, but people are going to be very hesitant to cross borders, especially with the issues with everyone had getting back home and being stuck overseas when all of a sudden borders started closing. I very much see that being an issue for a lot of people. That hesitation.
I think this is going to be a lot like pregnancy and having a child, that you forget very, very quickly how painful it really is. I'm not kidding. The same thing is going to happen.
Metaphor.
With all this.
Perfect.
I only pretend. I can't really speak to that in person.
I hope it doesn't go for 9 months.
In a few years, I don't know. Is something wrong?
I see that. I see that Tourism BC is really promoting, explore your backyard. Not right now, but in the future.
Yeah.
And I think the domestic market here in BC is going to do quite well. Once this rebounds, people are going to be hesitant to travel across borders, particularly into the U.S. And I think that, there's so many beautiful places to see in BC. The company I've been working for the last 5 years, we do small group tours all over BC. And we've been selling these small, groups of 25, max 25 people on 55-seat coaches for the last 5 years. And it's been very successful with an older demographic over 55, and it's been very successful.
But, oh, good. I'm so glad that you did this.
What, just out of curiosity with everyone, has anyone been following the Destination Canada webinars that they've been putting out? They've done only a couple so far.
I've done one.
Yeah, so the first one was just kind of a general thing, with a few people. The second one, they had the Minister for Tourism, Melanie Joly, who basically was just, copying the line about CERB and EI and all that. But what has come out in their initial one in that was that their push for the next couple of years is going to be on domestic tourism. They've stopped international advertising for Canada as a destination at the moment. When that may resume, that's another story. But their strategy was going to be shifting towards a more domestic based tourism. We all know how expensive it is to fly in Canada. And how Canadians have generally gone elsewhere rather than traveling within Canada in any large amount. I don't know where everyone's from. I'm from Nova Scotia. I had no idea what it was like out here until I moved here over a decade ago. And in my experience, there's been lots of people in Canada who just have never been to the rest of Canada. Do you see any programs, any ideas, any thoughts on how that may increase at this point? Or do you see domestic tourism changing at all?
We agree with you, Matthew. There'll be a lot more Canada and inter-Canada tours. So,
are Canadians going to want to take tours from other, Canadian residents and that sort of thing, or are they going to be traveling themselves more independently? Because that's a twofold thing. Hotels may do well, accommodations and restaurants and attractions may do well. Tour companies, on the other hand, with domestic tourism, probably aren't.
That's what I think. I don't think if Canadians travel, they rent a car and they do it on their own. I don't think they will go with tour companies very much.
Even as some sort of, I see it as, if the strategy that they're looking at, and they haven't really released much, they're still working on it, is to be expanded, it would have to include something like flight subsidies or something like that, because it's just $1,000 round trip per person for a family of 4 from east to west coast. Just, $4,000 just to begin with is not really tenable. If they did have some sort of a subsidy, I just see them arriving and renting their own vehicles and doing their own thing. I don't see tour companies really being a large part of a domestic travel initiative or program. I just
Matthew,
wouldn't
it's
see
been
that.
like that for years.
And that's what I'm saying. Like that's where I see Destination Canada is wanting to promote it, but it's only going to help certain aspects of the domestic tourism industry with something like that. So
Well, that's where the tour guide has to reinvent herself or himself to be, available to family units rather than just to groups.
But I think in the end, people want to go somewhere internationally again. It will take a little bit, but
Yeah.
people want to go to Europe. People want to go to Australia. People want to go somewhere. I also think, yes, it will take a while, but there will be the point where people say, whatever.
And that's what Destination Canada was talking about, that it's going to be a couple of years of domestic pain before people go internationally. So
But your insurance, your travel insurance will probably be part of what demonstrates what you're going to do. They may not cover pandemics that we've got right now. And
which is going to be scary for a lot of people if all of a sudden they're buying insurance normally, and now because of the reality of this, insurance companies are either going to charge a very large premium to cover you for a pandemic cancellation, or just not cover you at all. That's gonna have an effect on people and their travel choices. So.
Yeah, it will. You know what? I'm licensed to sell travel insurance, and that whole industry, you're going to see a drastic change in that. I was scheduled to go to Europe on March 13th this year with a group of high school kids, and 2 days before, the school board backed out and said, no, you're not going, which I was grateful for. And the insurance, was an issue for sure. And going forward, next year, when you go to buy insurance, it's going to be a whole new ball game. It's not going to be what you have right now.
I mean, that's a potential way to leverage domestic tourism, is the fact that insurance is not going to be needed to be able to travel within this country, and that there is so much to explore that hasn't been explored by most Canadians.
Well, you do need insurance to travel in Canada, because it's called out of province, because the BC provincial health is different than other provinces. So, but for the company that we buy through BCAA, and we only need a 3-day out, even if we go into Alberta or beyond, but we can go for as long as we want. So as long as we have a travel insurance for 3 days, then we're good to go across Canada for 4 months. So
I would assume that premium, though, is still far less than an international trip may end up being what this is going to be going. So it's more affordable for a family for that domestically.
Yeah, you're just got a 3-day out, that's all.
And I think you're also going to see airfares are going to drop drastically domestically, because the airlines, of course, are all hurting. They've all kind of basically more or less shut down. And I was a flight attendant back in 9/11, and I watched what happened to the industry after that, and that is not as drastic as this situation. You're going to see a couple of airlines go under completely that just aren't going to survive this at all. The flag carriers, WestJet and Air Canada, of course, they'll survive, but things like Sunwing, Swoop, Flair, Transat, who knows what's going to happen to those guys.
Porter on the East Coast, things like that.
Porter, yeah. So you're going to see some airlines disappear for sure. Some airlines are going to disappear because there's not going to be enough demand to fill those airplanes, and they're not going to fly around empty. They won't make any money.
Which is what I was saying earlier about having, some sort of a subsidy put in place, or some sort of a federal program to subsidize the cost of domestic travel for Canadian residents and stuff, to stimulate people getting in and traveling like that. And it may be that the airlines are going to have to start reducing all of their fees.
When the airlines can only put half the seats in, because if they need to leave those extra spaces in between, you have every second seat.
So my friend is still flying. He's a pilot for Air Canada. He's still flying. And other than 2 days ago, the requirement for all travelers on the plane to wear masks, every single seat is still full on those planes. The number of flights are reduced, but there's no distancing on board any aircraft right now in Canada.
There isn't right now?
Nope. You're still
Wow.
you're still sitting seat to seat.
Lufthansa is doing every second seat. That's
Yeah.
what I know.
Yeah, but they're not traveling to here. It's only, we're basically only getting now at this point, flights within Canada, at least with Air Canada anyway, other than, for I think 2 weeks now, the flight attendants on board have had PPE, that they wear full PPE, but there was no requirement until 2 days ago for the passengers to have any form of it. And they have no distancing. You're still together, and that's for a lot of people, that's just not going to be a comfortable proposition for them, even for a while. So
well,
people
and
are
seat
flying now
costs
just because they have to.
Yeah, and seat costs are based on how many seats are on the airplane. So they weigh out the cost of the fuel, the crew, maintenance, all of that based on, per seat, per mile.
And
So
in order to distance, you'd have to have some sort of a cost subsidy from, some sort of federal program in order to twofold tackle that
Except
issue.
the government can't bail out everybody. We're gonna run out of money. Like, I don't even know how they're doing it now.
Our taxes are going to go sky high.
That's what I figure, because where's the money coming from? I mean, it's great that they're helping us all out. I'm very appreciative of it. I got that emergency benefit, and it's fabulous. But where's the money coming from?
Okay.
Say that again.
Which one?
Well, there's two and two.
What's the question again, George?
Well, I didn't have a question. I'm just saying there's no free lunch. If they have lots of federal subsidies, we're going to be the ones paying for it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm on a Facebook group that mostly has a lot of Americans on it, and they're furious. A lot of them are furious that the U.S. federal government might give bailout money to some of the airlines in the States, and they don't think that should be, especially all the years that they've raked passengers over the coals and charged them, nickel and dimed them to death, shoehorned them into a tiny space and so on. They're not happy.
Oh yeah. Well, you saw that thing I posted a while back, Jeff? It's like the big investor that said it's like, let them go, because it's like the only people that are going to lose when the airlines go down are the so-called smart investors, the elite. Mm-hmm. That's those are the ones that are going to hurt. And as someone said, having capitalism without bankruptcy is like Catholicism without hell.
It's an interesting way to put it. I can work with that.
Oh, okay.
All right. We're just getting near closer to 12 o'clock, and I hope you folks have all felt that this was successful. Matthew has created a form which will get emailed out or somehow get out. And if you want to return it, we're always, of course, I'm hoping to do this again next Tuesday with a guest speaker. I'll get back to you on that. Tuesday at 11 a.m. Does that time work for everyone? Is there a different time we should consider? Or
we got all the time in the world, Jeff.
I'll check my
Sure.
I'll have to check my calendar.
Yeah.
Again,
Jeff, you were changing your background. So what were you doing? Traveling?
How did you do that?
All right, so here's what you do. Okay,
just as a little heads up too, for a lot of the technical questions about that, I'm going to have a little spot in the little survey for you guys to ask those as well, and we can help you out too. So
it's just in a nutshell, because one thing I discovered yesterday, Matthew, which was interesting. Lorraine and I were trying a test Zoom meeting because she had never been on it. And I discovered that when I tap my screen and I touch the three dots and the more button, I get the menu come down and it says virtual background. And when I touched that, there was a couple of choices and there was a plus symbol. When I hit the plus symbol, a window opened and I didn't see anything right away. So I thought, well, that's strange. And while I was waiting, trying to figure out what to do, suddenly my photo page opened with all kinds of photos on it. And then I picked a photo, and then I was able to get that as a background. And then when you're done, you go to the upper, in my case, in the upper left-hand corner, there's an X I hit.
Hey,
so
cool.
Yeah,
it's called virtual
works, Kathy. It
backgrounds.
looks great.
It
Most
will
of the-
not work on older devices, just so you know. It's only on the newer ones. So not, if it doesn't
Also,
work for
the
you,
use
it'll
of the
tell you.
space bar.
I've got my beautiful skyscape. I'm
Yeah,
happy.
I have an older device and it doesn't work. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, I
It
just
becomes
did it.
something
It
weird
works.
like this. I show you. With the older device, it comes like.
Yeah, that's
I
right.
I just
Exactly
did it. It
right.
works. I've got house sound behind me.
There you go.
Yes,
Beautiful.
So you can choose your own photo. They have some basic stock
Bye-bye.
photos, but if anyone's looking around on the internet right now, all kinds of companies are putting out specific backgrounds for people to use on Zoom. So if you just go and Google Zoom background download, you'll be able to find whatever background you want. So you could have all the 7 wonders of the world on the next one.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. Could this be a beginning for a virtual travel?
Say that again. Who was speaking there? I didn't catch who was
This is
speaking.
Keenan here. Keenan here. I salute everyone. Could this be a beginning for virtual travel, like the backgrounds changed and from your room you can travel around the world, and maybe we can tap into guiding in such an activity?
Could be.
Could be. Yeah.
Everyone's aware that museums and that from around the world, art galleries, are all providing virtual tours of their locations now. So you can go through the Louvre, you can go through everywhere that you'd like to, basically now online, because they're opening up their collections in that sense in a way that was never done before.
There's more than a few of you out there that haven't asked me how Trish is doing and where is she?
Yeah, is she home with you, Jeff?
Yeah, right?
Okay. Hi, Trish.
How you doing, Trisha girl? You know what it is. You know what it is. You know what it is.
Can you say hello to everybody?
Nobody.
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 She looks lovely, yeah.
What's that? What's that?
She looks lovely, Jeff.
She looks lovely, yeah. And she's sometimes she's quite humorous and quite talkative, and sometimes you can't quite make out what she's saying. I can kind of guess at it, but she's a very pretty girl. She's very happy to be not in the care home. I'm so glad I took her out of there. They'd been starting to confine everybody into their rooms, and she'd be in that, imagine being in that same room all the time, all day long. I mean, they told me they left the door open and they blocked the door with a chair, and they would come by every few minutes and talk to her for a moment, but still, she's a people person. She needs exercise. You really have, I feel, not only for the other people that are still stuck in the care facilities, but the staff at the particular care facility she was in, 2 weeks ago, they were down 6 people. And as you may have heard on the national newscast last night or the night before, the media is starting to pick up on the fact that there's no like, if I'm suddenly needing a tour guide, I've got about 20 or 100 of you people I can try to phone and say, can you come in tomorrow? Is somebody sick? Whatever. But there's no help right now. There's no extra staff anywhere that can come in to fill in for the people. So the staff that are working at a hospital or a care facility, they're having to pull extra duty because they're short staffed. So this is something that will be good coming out of the whole COVID-19, is that there hopefully will be backup plans for the future, and hopefully these people will be getting better pay. Many of the LPNs are, they're having to work 2 or 3 jobs because the care home they're at is only allowing them 20 hours a week. So they work 20 hours there and then they work 20 hours somewhere else. So hopefully this is going to help the long-term care facility industry out.
For sure.
Yeah.
Jeff, I just wanted to add something about the Zoom training. The West Vancouver Public Library is having an online workshop tomorrow at 2. If anybody, I know everybody's here, so they probably have a lot of information, but it's always nice to learn more tips. And you just have to go to the West Vancouver Library website.
Good. That's good to know.
And it's on the front page, I'm pretty sure. And just have to register.
Fantastic. And I'm sure some of the other libraries are doing that now too.
Possibly, it's 2 o'clock.
All right. Anybody else have any comments or anything at all they want to add?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you so much, guys, for creating this platform. The important thing is we have it. So if we need it, we have to have an important things, can get together. So thanks, Matt and Jeff.
Yeah, Matt, Jeff, thank you.
Thank
Not
you.
a problem.
Thank you so much.
Nice whoops. So nice to see everybody.
Yeah,
Thank
you'll
you.
have a good feeling the rest of the day, like you've been somewhere.
Big meeting, 20 people.
Thanks.
We were up to
Yeah.
24 at one point, so
We
that
got to
was the highest
24.
one.
I was hoping, I was thinking with almost 200 members now, we might be able to hit upwards of 50 or more, but perhaps some people didn't know.
Spread the word to everybody. The account that I have will allow us up to 100 on the screen at once. So,
No, the email went out to everybody, so
yeah, it happens.
They got to choose.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
There'll be another one coming too with the little survey link. So any questions about the content of the meeting, future meetings, the technical questions as well, please feel free to fill it out.
Thank you.
Good.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Good luck.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Hey, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I was going to say just a minute. I wanted to see. Matthew if or Jeff. I think
Yeah, I'm still here.
you're
Yeah.
still here. We don't see the three dots on our screen.
Can't see you either.
What kind of device are you using to access?
We're on a Lenovo PC.
You're on a Lenovo window.
Desktop.
Okay. So when you are looking at the screen right now, are you seeing everybody at once, or are you seeing
Yeah,
individual people as they speak?
Got the gallery view up. Yeah.
Gallery, perfect. Okay. So if you take your mouse or your trackpad and put it over your particular window.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, there it is.
There's a menu with a number of options for you.
Aha.
Okay.
Okay.
And then you can do the same thing with other people as well. And then it should be at the bottom of your screen. There's a whole bunch, because it's on the computer, there's more room for it. So there's not necessarily 3 dots and then a menu that comes up from it. It would simply be the bottom line where it says like mute, stop video, security, participants, etc., and all that on the bottom. So.
Okay, because it doesn't have the more where you can get the different pictures.
The background, the virtual background.
Yeah.
So how old is your computer?
Oh, it's only about 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, it might not be old enough for the background, and it's been a while. I can't remember offhand the virtual backgrounds for.
We got Windows 10. I don't know if that matters.
Windows 10 is good. So the other one, it might just be if you go like up to File and Preferences or Options and that, it should bring up another set of settings for you, and one of them should be virtual background.
And that 5th generation iPad I sold you last year, if you put your Zoom app on that, you'll probably find it. I'm using my iPad for this today, and it works really well. And you'll find that, anything newer has sort of more bells and whistles, as it were. You still have that iPad I sold you? Is it working?
I do, yes. I'm enjoying it. I'm using it for a message chat with my sister and a few other things,
Well, download the Zoom app onto it, and you'll find it'll be really good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I think for your computer, it'll be in the top file options or file settings or something like that in the top left-hand corner to be able to find that. I'm on a Mac. It's located up there. It's a little slightly different than on the Windows.
Okay.
I have
no struggle.
For those of you still on, I have breaking news. IKEA's decided to share their recipe for the Swedish meatballs.
That's good. That's good.
That's good.
One of those recipes. Okay. Thanks, guys. Thank you very much.
No problem.
Yeah. Okay. Matthew, thanks. We'll talk or text or whatever. We'll go from there.
See you later.
Hi to Trish.
Okay. Yeah. She's here. Yeah. Say hello, Trishy.
Trish. No, I got them. I had them already.
Okay.
Bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.